Hello everyone. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and let's go.
When does a home stop being a sanctuary and start being a crime scene? In this psychological and legal analysis, we dive into the story of a man who found his own property being used as a tool for his destruction. Listen, you think you know your life. You think you've got the steering wheel gripped tight, and you're cruising down a smooth highway with the cruise control set. That was me. I'm 52 years old, and for a long time, I thought I'd won the game. I ran one of the biggest luxury hotels on the Las Vegas Strip. We're talking about a place with 3,000 rooms, gold leaf ceilings, and high rollers who drop $50,000 on a single hand of blackjack without blinking. I worked my tail off to get there. 25 years of grinding, starting as a night auditor and clawing my way up to the corner office. I was the guy who made sure every light bulb was tight and every steak was cooked to the exact degree of Fahrenheit the guest wanted. My home life? It was even better. Or so I thought. I'd been married to Loria for 12 years. She was beautiful, smart, and she always seemed to have my back. We lived in a gorgeous house in Summerlin, tucked away in one of those quiet, gated communities where the grass is always green despite the desert heat. We had the pool, the outdoor kitchen with a built-in wolf range, and the 3-car garage for my Silverado and her Lexus. Every morning started the same way. We'd sit in our kitchen, drinking coffee from that expensive Italian machine she insisted on buying. She'd be scrolling through her iPad, talking about her little side project. See, Loria told me she was helping a friend of hers, a woman named Sarah from her old yoga class, manage some short-term rentals. She called it a boutique concierge service. She said it kept her busy and gave her some pocket change, so she did not feel like she was just living off my salary. I respected that. I even gave her tips on how to handle difficult guests or how to optimize her pricing during the Super Bowl weekend. I felt proud of her. I thought we were a team. Anyway, things were going great at the hotel. We were coming off a record-breaking quarter, and I was feeling pretty good about myself. One Tuesday night, I was staying late in the office to catch up on some market analysis. In the hotel business, you have to know what the competition is doing. You have to know who's slashing prices and who's adding new amenities. Usually, I just look at the big chains, the Bellagio, the Wynn, the Caesars. But that night, for some reason, I decided to look at the short-term rental market. I wanted to see if the luxury condos in the area were pulling our whales away from the suites. I opened up the Airbnb app on my laptop. I set the filters for luxury and entire home and started scrolling through the map around the Summerlin area. Most of it was the usual stuff, overpriced villas with beige furniture. But then, I saw a listing that made me stop. The thumbnail showed a small, modern guest house with large glass doors and a gray stone patio. My heart did a weird little skip. Not a heart attack skip, but that cold jolt you get when you realize you've forgotten something important. I clicked on the listing. The title was The Secret Hideaway, Privacy and Luxury in the Heart of the Desert. I started clicking through the photos. Photo 1, a living room with a mid-century modern leather sofa. Photo 2, a kitchenette with a white marble backsplash. Photo 3, a bedroom with a view of a very familiar-looking pool. I felt like someone had just dumped a bucket of ice water down my shirt. That was my guest house, the one at the back of our property, right past the rose bushes. I'd built that place 3 years ago as a home office and a spot for my parents to stay when they came out from Ohio. I leaned in closer to the screen, my eyes burning. I looked at the little details in the photos. There was a specific crack in the blue tile near the edge of the pool, a crack I'd been meaning to fix for months. And then, there it was. On the nightstand in the bedroom photo, lying right next to a lamp, was a watch. It was a Tag Heuer Carrera with a brown leather strap. My watch. I'd lost that thing 6 months ago. I thought I'd left it at the gym or maybe dropped it at a job site. But there it was, in a professional photo for an Airbnb listing. I sat there for a long time, just staring at the screen. The office was quiet, except for the hum of the air conditioning. I felt like a complete moron. I'm a professional hotelier. I manage thousands of rooms for a living, and I did not even know someone was running a hotel in my own damn backyard. I checked the host profile. It was not Sarah. It was Lily. The profile picture was a generic shot of a sunset. I looked at the reviews. There were dozens of them. 5-star ratings across the board. One review from 3 weeks ago caught my eye. It was from a guy named R. He wrote, "Absolute perfection. The host goes above and beyond. The breakfasts served in bed are better than anything you'll find on the Strip. This is my 3rd stay, and I would not go anywhere else. It feels like home, only better." The date on that review? That was the weekend I was in Chicago for the National Restaurant Association show. I felt a surge of heat crawl up my neck. It was not just the money. It was not just the house. It was the sheer, ballsy arrogance of it. My wife was using my property, my money, for the cleaning services, and my own missing watch as a prop to host someone in our backyard while I was out working to pay for it all. I looked at the cleaning fees on our joint bank statement on my other screen. Every 2 weeks, $250 to Sparkle and Shine Cleaning. I'd always assumed they were doing the main house. But no, I was paying for the linens to be changed for R. I did not call her. I did not scream. I just sat there. I'm a man of plans. You do not run a luxury hotel by reacting emotionally when a pipe bursts in the lobby. You shut off the water, you assess the damage, and then you fix the problem so it never happens again. I stayed in that office until 2 in the morning. I did not go home. I could not look at her. Not yet. I needed to know who R was. I had a gut feeling, a nasty little suspicion that was starting to take root in my chest. I pulled up the employee directory for my hotel. I went to the finance department. There he was, Ryan, my vice president of finance, a guy I'd hired 3 years ago, a guy I'd mentored. He was 38, flashy, drove a Porsche he could not really afford, and always had a brilliant new idea for how to cut costs. I'd invited him over for dinner a dozen times. I'd introduced him to Loria. I'd even helped him get a better rate on his mortgage through my connections at the bank. I started digging into Ryan's expense reports. He'd been taking a lot of personal days lately, always on Tuesdays or Thursdays, the same days the guest was checked into the hideaway. I felt a cold, hard knot form in my stomach. It was like a puzzle falling together, and every piece was a slap in the face. I stood up and walked over to the window. The lights of the Strip were glowing in the distance, neon greens and bright whites, a sea of artificial joy. People come to this city to get lucky. They come here to win big. But me? I'd been playing a game I did not even know was happening, and I'd been losing for a long, long time. But the thing about Vegas is, the house always wins in the end. And I was the house. I grabbed my keys and walked out of the office. I did not go home to Summerlin. I drove to a cheap motel near the airport, a place where no one would recognize me. I needed a night to think. I needed a night to turn this pain into a plan. Because by the time I was done, Loria and Ryan were not just going to be out of my life. They were going to wish they'd never stepped foot in my backyard. I woke up the next morning in that motel room feeling like I'd been run over by a freight train. The sun was poking through the gaps in the cheap curtains, and the air smelled like stale cigarettes and industrial cleaner. I stayed in bed for a while, just staring at the popcorn ceiling. My phone was blowing up. 6 missed calls from Loria. 4 texts. "Where are you? Is everything okay? You never came home. I'm worried." I did not answer. I just looked at the screen until it went dark. It's funny how a person can lie to your face for a year, but the second you do not show up for your role in their play, they start acting like the victim. I got up, splashed some cold water on my face, and drove back to the hotel. I was not going to hide. I had a job to do, but I was not going to do it from my desk. I went straight to the security basement. The security director, a retired cop named Miller, was sitting there, surrounded by 60 monitors. He's been with me for 10 years. He's the kind of guy who does not ask questions if you tell him you need a favor. "Morning, Evan," he said, not looking away from the screens. "You look like hell." "Long night, Miller," I said. "I need a private terminal and some quiet. I need to look into some internal stuff. High level. You understand?" Miller nodded. He pointed to a small glassed-in room in the corner. "All yours, completely off the main network. No logs." I sat down and went to work. If I was going to do this, I needed more than just a feeling and an Airbnb listing. I needed ironclad. I needed the kind of proof that makes a lawyer's jaw drop. I started with the corporate server. I have administrative access to everything. I pulled up Ryan's internal emails. At first, it was just the usual business junk. Budget meetings, vendor contracts, spreadsheets. But then I looked at his deleted items. The guy was arrogant. He thought delete meant gone. In a hotel this size, nothing is ever gone. I found a folder of messages sent to a private Gmail account. My stomach did a slow roll as I read them. It was not just about the affair. That was bad enough. The "I miss you" and the "I cannot wait for Tuesday" stuff made me want to throw up. But there was more. Ryan was selling us out. He'd been sending our internal VIP guest lists and our projected whales for the next fiscal year to our biggest competitor down the street. In exchange, he was getting consulting fees wired to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. And Loria, she was in on it. I found a draft of a document in Ryan's files. It was a proposal for a management buyout of the hotel's retail wing. They were planning to use the money from his consulting and her Airbnb business to build a war chest. They were waiting for me to hit my 5-year vesting period so they could hit me with a divorce, take half of my shares, and then use Ryan's inside info to tank the hotel's stock price so they could buy in cheap. They were going to skin me alive and then take the house too. I sat there for 2 hours, reading every single word. I saw the photos they sent each other. Photos taken in my house, in my bed, on my patio. They laughed about how I was too busy with my reports to notice they were living a whole other life right under my nose. I felt a roar of anger start to build in my chest, but I pushed it down. I've learned one thing in 30 years of business. The guy who loses his temper loses the deal. I needed to be cold. I needed to be the ghost in the machine. I copied everything. Every email, every photo, every bank statement. I put it all on an encrypted thumb drive. Then I did something a little petty. I went back to the Airbnb app. I created a fake account under the name Mark. I used a burner phone and a prepaid credit card. I sent a message to Lily. "Hi, I'm coming to town for a high-stakes poker tournament next week. I need total privacy and high-end service. Your place looks perfect. Is it available for a long-term stay starting this Thursday? 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was a notification from the app. Lily had replied. "Hi, Mark. We would love to host you. The Hideaway is perfect for someone who needs to stay under the radar. We offer full concierge service. We can even stock the fridge with whatever you like. Look forward to seeing you." I felt a grim smile pull at the corners of my mouth. I booked it for 7 nights. $3,500. My own money, going into her secret account to rent my own guest house. I spent the rest of the day acting like everything was normal. I went to meetings. I talked to the chef about the new seasonal menu. I even sat through a 20-minute presentation from Ryan about cost-saving measures in the laundry department. I looked him right in the eye while he talked. I watched his mouth move. I watched how he adjusted his tie, a silk one that probably cost $400. I wondered if I'd paid for that tie too. "Great job, Ryan," I said when he finished. "Your attention to detail is really impressive." "Thanks, Evan," he said with that smug frat boy grin. "I just want to see this place reach its full potential." "Oh, I have no doubt about that," I replied. That evening, I finally went home. Luria was in the kitchen, just like always. She was wearing a white silk robe and holding a glass of Chardonnay. She looked like the picture of a devoted wife. "Evan, where have you been?" she cried, running over to hug me. She smelled like expensive perfume and lies. "I was so worried." "Why did not you answer my calls?" "I'm sorry, honey," I said, my voice flat. "There was a major security breach at the hotel. I had to stay on site with the tech team. I did not want to worry you with the details." She pulled back, her eyes searching mine. "A security breach? Is it bad?" "It's being handled," I said, "but it's going to be a long week. I might have to spend a lot of time in the office." "Oh, poor thing," she said, stroking my arm. "You work too hard. You should take a break. Maybe we could go to Cabo next month." "Maybe," I said. I walked past her and went into the bedroom. I did not pack a bag. I just took my passport and a few important documents from the safe. "I'm going to go take a shower and then head back to work," I called out. "Tonight?" she asked, appearing in the doorway. "But I made dinner." "Save it for me," I said. "I'll have it tomorrow." I left the house 20 minutes later. I did not look back. I had everything I needed. The trap was set. Now I just had to wait for the guests to check in. The next 3 days were a blur of cold fury. That's the only way I can describe it. I did not feel sad anymore. I did not feel betrayed. I felt like a sniper waiting for the target to walk into the crosshairs. I stayed at a different hotel every night. I kept up appearances at work, but I was secretly meeting with a private investigator and a high-priced divorce attorney, a guy named Shapiro, who has a reputation for being a pit bull in a 3-piece suit. "Evan," Shapiro told me, leaning back in his leather chair, "you've got enough here to bury them both. The corporate espionage alone could put Ryan in federal prison. And the Airbnb thing? It's icing on the cake. We're going to file for an emergency freeze on all joint assets and a temporary restraining order to keep her away from the property." "Not yet," I said. "I want them to think they've won first. I want the fall to be a long one." The big night was Thursday, the night Mark was supposed to check into the Hideaway. I told Luria I had a board of directors dinner that night and would not be home until late. She was thrilled. She even offered to drop my dry cleaning off for me. But I did not go to a board dinner. I went to the house at 6 p.m. I parked my truck 3 blocks away and walked through the neighbor's yard, We've lived next to the Millers for 10 years, and they were happy to let me test my new security cameras from their patio. I sat there with a pair of binoculars and a tablet connected to the hidden cameras I'd installed in the guest house the night before while Loria was at her yoga class. At 6:30 p.m., Ryan's Porsche pulled into the driveway. He did not park in the front. He drove around to the back near the guest house. I watched the screen on my tablet. He walked into the hideaway like he owned the place. He was carrying a bag from a high-end Italian restaurant and a bottle of vintage champagne. 10 minutes later, Loria walked out the back door of the main house. She was wearing a red dress I'd bought her for our anniversary. She looked beautiful. It made my stomach turn. I watched them on the screen. They hugged. They kissed. They sat on the sofa and started eating the pasta I'd probably paid for. "To us," Ryan said, raising his glass. "To the future owners of the Grand Vista Hotel." "To us," Loria echoed. "And to poor, boring Evan. I wonder if he's still staring at his spreadsheets right now." They laughed. It was a cruel, sharp sound that echoed through the small speakers of my tablet. I waited. I let them finish their dinner. I let them open the second bottle of champagne. I let them get comfortable. Then, I walked over to the guest house. I did not knock. I had the key. I opened the door and stepped inside. The silence that hit the room was deafening. It was like someone had sucked all the oxygen out of the air. Ryan jumped off the sofa so fast he knocked over his wine glass. The red liquid soaked into the white rug. Loria just froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. "Evan!" she gasped, her face turning the color of a sheet. What are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing, honey," I said, my voice steady. "But I think I already know. I'm the host, remember?" "I'm Mark." I held up my phone with the Airbnb app open. Ryan tried to regain his composure. He straightened his shirt and took a step toward me. "Look, Evan, it's not what it looks like. We were discussing some business matters, private matters." "Business?" I laughed. It was not a happy sound. "Is that what you call selling our VIP lists to the Venetian? Or is that what you call sleeping with my wife in the house I paid for?" Ryan's eyes went wide. He looked at Loria, then back at me. "I do not know what you're talking about." "I think you do, Ryan," I said. "I've seen the emails. I've seen the bank statements. I've seen the photos. Every single one." I threw a thick manila envelope onto the coffee table. It landed with a heavy thud. "Inside that envelope is everything I need to put you in a cage for a decade, Ryan. Corporate espionage, fraud, money laundering. Take your pick." Ryan slumped back onto the sofa. All that VP energy evaporated in a second. He looked like a scared kid. Loria finally found her voice. She stood up, her eyes flashing with a mix of fear and rage. "You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you can just walk in here and ruin everything? Well, guess what, Evan? I'm unhappy. I've been unhappy for years. You're boring. You care more about your occupancy rates than you do about me." "Then you should have left," I said quietly. "You should have asked for a divorce like a grown-up. But you wanted the money. You wanted the house. You wanted to have your cake and eat it too." "I deserve it," she screamed. "I spent 12 years playing the perfect wife while you built your empire. I earned half of everything you have." "Not anymore," I said. "You violated the morality clause in our prenup. And since you've been using our marital assets to run an illegal business on our property, you've basically handed me the keys to everything." I turned to Ryan. "And you? You're fired. Effective 30 seconds ago. Security is at your office right now, clearing out your desk. They're also handing over a copy of that envelope to the district attorney. Ryan started to shake. Evan, please, do not do this. We can talk about this. I can help you fix the data leak. It's already fixed, I said. I've already spoken to the board. They're fully aware of your consulting work. I walked over to the door and opened it wide. Now, both of you, get out. What? Gloria asked, stunned. Now? It's 9 o'clock at night. I do not care if it's 4 in the morning, I said. This house is being put on the market tomorrow. The locks on the main house have already been changed. Your bags are in the driveway. You cannot do this, she yelled. I just did, I said. I watched them walk out. Ryan went first, his head hanging low. Gloria followed him, screaming insults at my back until she reached the driveway. I watched from the patio as they climbed into his Porsche and sped away, the tires screeching on the pavement. I walked back into the guest house. I picked up the fallen wine glass. I looked at the mess on the rug. Then, I sat down on the sofa. I poured myself a glass of the champagne they had not finished. It was expensive. It was cold. And it tasted like victory. The next 6 months were a whirlwind of lawyers, depositions, and paperwork. It turns out, when you have a mountain of evidence that looks like K2, the other side tends to fold pretty fast. Ryan did not go to federal prison, but he came close. He took a plea deal, 5 years of probation, a massive fine, and he's permanently barred from working in the hospitality or finance industries ever again. Last I heard, he was working at a car wash in Henderson. From VP to V6 detailing. It's a hell of a fall. Gloria did not get half of everything. She did not even get 10%. Between the prenup and the evidence of her Airbnb business, the judge was not exactly sympathetic. She got a small lump sum settlement and her Lexus. That was it. She tried to sue me for emotional distress, but the case was laughed out of court. She moved into a 1-bedroom apartment near the airport, the kind of place where the planes shake the windows every 10 minutes. It's funny, she wanted a more exciting life, and now she's living right in the middle of all that noise. Me? I sold the house in Summerlin. I could not stand the sight of that guest house anymore. Every time I looked at it, I just saw 2 rats eating my cheese. I bought a penthouse downtown, high up, where I can see the whole city. It's quiet. It's clean. And there's no guest house. I'm still running the hotel. We're doing better than ever. I hired a new VP of finance, a woman who's been with the company for 20 years and has a moral compass that actually works. I do not go on many dates. I'm not sure I'm ready for that yet. Trust is a hard thing to rebuild when it's been burned down to the studs, but sometimes, on a Tuesday night, I'll sit out on my balcony with a glass of good bourbon. I'll look out at the desert and the lights, and I'll think about that Airbnb listing. I'll think about the look on their faces when I walked through that door. And I'll smile. Because in this city, people lose their shirts every single day. They gamble on the wrong cards. They bet on the wrong horses, and they trust the wrong people. But I've learned my lesson. I'm not gambling anymore. I'm the house. And the house always, always wins. Anyway, that's my story. Another round? This case study raises a critical question about modern relationships. When you realize a partner has turned your trust into a business opportunity, is there any room left for emotion? Or is a cold, tactical response the only way to survive? Many men ignore the small glitches until the foundation crumbles. Let's discuss where the line should be drawn between being a supportive partner and being a convenient target in the comments below.